my favorite part about tracking my spending is that at the end of every single month, I get to look back and see exactly where my money went, which if you've never done it, that probably sounds stressful, but I promise the longer that you do it, the less stressful it is and the more satisfying it is. So in this video, we are doing my monthly money reset process, talking through what I spent last month and then budgeting together for a new month. If you aren't sure what it looks like to track your spending and then use that information to build a budget for next month, I hope this video gives you some tips for doing it yourself. So let's get into it. And before I get into my spending, I want to talk to you about today's sponsor, Cleo. Cleo is the world's first AI financial assistant, and they just added voice so that you can ask all of your burning money questions on the go. Their app becomes your financial assistant. It's conversational, intelligent. You can ask it so many questions about your finances, like, are my finances getting better or worse as the year goes on? What are my biggest areas of opportunities for my budget? Where am I overspending? Cleo is the first financial AI app that you can actually talk back and forth with, because we don't all have a financially literate friend that we can call in a pinch. So this girl that I only kind of know invited me to go on her bachelorette trip. Realistically, is that in the budget?
Unless this bachelorette trip is paid for by a reality TV sponsor, it's not really in the budget. Want help making a plan for a cheaper way to join, or do you just need someone to validate a polite no?
Okay, so realistically, what would happen if I got this apartment that's $500 more a month?
If you go for an apartment that's $500 more a month, you're looking at an extra $6,000 a year. That can hit your budget pretty hard. You'd be at nearly $1,800 over. To make up that $500, you'd have to cut back in these areas.
I know I personally love talking to my AI instead of typing everything out. It just helps me get my point across and it saves me so much time on the go. This is such a cool way to interact with your finances, just like you'd be talking to a friend. What I love about using AI for your finances is it helps you see the big picture with your money instead of just short snapshots over a period of time. An AI app like Cleo can help you zoom out, see patterns, show you if you're making progress, and be brutally honest if you're not. Its memory means that it's only getting more helpful over time, so the more you use it, the smarter it becomes and the more it can help you with your money. If you want to try Cleo to start using AI for your finances, I'll leave a link in the description of this video. Some context on my numbers last month. Last month was a crazy month. I moved last month from Nashville back to Pittsburgh, and then literally 48 hours later, I left the country for 10 days. I spent the last 10 days of the month in Japan with my boyfriend. So last month was absolutely insane. I just feel like that's better for you to see because I've been doing this exact same budgeting and tracking my spending process for the last probably 4 or 5 years. And I feel like at this point, I really have it down pat to where even when I have a month that has quote unquote like crazy high expenses, I've planned for it in advance, I've saved for it in advance. So my budget still really isn't thrown out of whack, which is the point. That's the point of budgeting and creating a plan for your money and saving for things in advance so that even when you have a high expense month, you're not stressed about it, you know where the money came from, and you can move forward creating a budget for next month. For example, spending the last 10 days of the month out of the country, I spent literally every single dollar out of my travel bucket and my high yield savings account this month, which means that account is at zero and I'm going to have to save more money into that account before I can justify taking another vacation. Okay, so let's get into my spending for last month so that you can see exactly how much I earned and then exactly how much I spent last month. On the income side, my income last month was $6,772 post-tax. I am self-employed, but I'm salaried through my business, so I pay myself the exact same salary every single month. I'm set up on payroll through ADP. It hits my checking account on a post-tax basis, but it does sort of feel like I'm getting a regular salary. My needs this month totaled $3,044, so a little under 50% of my budget did go to my needs, which to me that's great, especially considering that the debt section of my budget is blank because I don't currently have any debt. I really do try to keep my needs under 50% so that I do have money to save and invest while also having some fun money as well, which you'll see. That needs portion of my budget was made up of my rent, which was $2,300, and last month was actually the very last month that I will pay rent ever. Like I said, I moved out of my apartment last month, so that was my last full month paying rent. I'm currently in my boyfriend's apartment and I'll be in here for the next 2-ish months until my house is done, which is great. That's giving me a couple of months to not pay rent. I also spent $73 on electric and $30 on Wi-Fi. Those are the only 2 utilities that I pay out of pocket outside of my rent from my apartment, which is great. $30 for Wi-Fi is also super low because my apartment complex pays for the Wi-Fi, but since I work from home, there were options to upgrade it to faster internet, which I did for $30 a month. Groceries, I spent $404 on last month, which honestly is pretty high considering, again, I wasn't in the country for 10 days. The other 2 or 3 of those days I was moving, so I wasn't buying groceries. I genuinely do not know how this was this high. I think I was just doing a lot of grocery shopping and a lot of cooking in for the first roughly 18 days of the month, I guess. I spent $117 on gas, which is a little bit higher than normal because I did have to drive from Nashville back to Pittsburgh. I spent $96 on pet insurance and $24 on renter's insurance. I do want to note that my health insurance and my car insurance is not currently in my monthly budget. My car insurance I pay once every 6 months, so I paid that back in the spring and I just logged it in my budget as miscellaneous expenses. My health insurance is routed through my company, so it's a business expense. It's not in my personal budget. This month I'm also gonna have to figure out homeowners insurance, so I'll probably be adjusting like my car insurance with that. I'll talk about that when we talk about next month's budget as well. Now let's move to the want side of my budget, which is obviously the fun stuff. It's all of my discretionary spending. It's me giving myself a budget to go out and have fun and enjoy my life within reason. And I honestly think this side of the budget is the most important part of tracking your spending to make sure you're not going overboard on the want side of your budget. So last month my wants totaled $2,382, which doesn't sound bad. It's honestly not bad. However, this doesn't include most of my travel expenses because I pulled that out of my savings account, which I'll show you. So the first expense was food and drinks. This obviously doesn't include groceries. It just includes restaurants and bars. And that was $553 last month. I think the biggest reason for that is the week that I was moving. I was honestly just all over the place. I didn't even really have like forks and plates to cook anything in. I was eating out a ton. There were a lot of takeout expenses, which also goes into the fact that I don't exactly know how I spent so much in groceries. Before I moved, I was also doing a lot in Nashville because I wanted to see my friends as much as possible before I moved. So there were a lot of dining out expenses. And then we did go out on Broadway one day in Nashville as well. And I think in my weekend recap, I said I spent like $170 in that one day on food and drinks. So that one totally makes sense and we don't regret that. I spent $565 shopping last month. This was mainly between buying a few things for my trip. We were in Japan and I wanted to buy a couple of just like neutral dresses, tops that I can wear a bunch of times on the trip. And then the big one in the shopping category last month is I did buy my friends a going away present when I was leaving Nashville. I bought them all really cute Pittsburgh sweatshirts on Etsy and I spent a total of like $300 on them. I spent $151 on fitness. This was between my gym membership and ClassPass. My gym in Nashville was pretty expensive and I obviously canceled it because I'm not there anymore. And now that I'm back in Pittsburgh, my gym membership will not be as expensive. Right now I'm paying $40 for LA Fitness and then I'm paying $45 for ClassPass. I spent $121 on subscriptions and it is on my to-do list for this month to review all of my subscriptions, cancel a few things. For example, there's a car wash membership in here that I did cancel because I'm not in Nashville anymore. I'm at my boyfriend's for the next 2 months, so I really don't need like my Hulu and my Paramount membership. Subscriptions I think are really important to track monthly just to make sure that you're not keeping something that you don't use. I only spent $31 on household and pet items last month, and then I have it logged here as $961 of miscellaneous expenses, which I want to explain where that number comes from because there's a lot of travel related expenses in here, but that's not all of my travel related expenses for my trip. So if we look at my transactions log, I logged $2,500 coming out of my travel sinking fund in my high yield savings account for my Japan trip. In total for my Japan trip, I spent around $3,100, but I only had $2,500 in my travel sinking fund in my high yield savings account for the trip. So out of the $3,100 that I spent on the trip, $2,500 of it came out of my savings account. So that left right around $600 that I still had to account for in my budget because I didn't have any money left in my savings account to pay for it. So I logged the rest of that $600 into miscellaneous expenses for last month. The only other thing that I logged out of my savings account from last month was $552 for movers when I moved out of Nashville. I actually didn't hire movers to go from Nashville to Pittsburgh to bring my furniture up because it was gonna be like $5,000 or $6,000 and then I didn't know what I was gonna do with the furniture for this weird like 2-month gap. So instead what I did was I hired this company called Junk Drop to come get my furniture and they actually donate it to people in need. So it's a nonprofit. All of my pieces are going to charity. I believe they work with like the Single Mothers Project and a couple of other different charities. I did obviously have to pay for the labor of the movers, but it just made me happy knowing that all of my pieces were going to go to a good cause. So in total this month, I spent $8,478. However, $3,052 of those dollars came out of my savings account. So only $5,428 came out of the money that I actually made last month or my monthly budget. That means that I still have right around $1,300 left over to save and invest last month. And honestly, my big priority now is to save for the move. I've been saving to buy furniture once my house is done. Every month for the last couple of months, I've just been pouring money into my moving sinking fund in my high yield savings account to pay for the move. Now I want to chat a little bit about my budget for the next month, or I guess the next kind of like 2, maybe 3-ish months while I'm staying at my boyfriend's, waiting for my house to be done. Things are just kind of like really up in the air right now. My budget obviously looks very, very different not having a housing payment. Like I'm not paying rent for the next 2 months. I also know when you close on a mortgage, your mortgage payments typically don't start right away. There's typically like a 1, maybe 2 month gap. So honestly, I'm not really gonna have a housing payment for the next like 3.5 months, which obviously is great, but it just makes my budget look significantly different. So I wanna chat about some different things that I'm doing, some of my expenses that I have coming up and where I'm prioritizing prioritizing putting my money for the next couple of months. So I think it would be easy for me to say, okay, I was spending $2,300 a month on rent and now I just want to put $2,300 a month into my savings account for the next couple of months, but my other expenses aren't 100% the same as they were when I was in Nashville. So I did totally redo my budget. I'll put my budget planner on the screen right now so you can like pause and read everything that I listed out if you want to see everything, but I'll just kind of talk through some of the differences here. The big one is I increased my grocery budget to $1,000 a month while I'm staying at my boyfriend's. I don't necessarily know if I'm going to spend all of this. However, since he's not charging me rent, I'm definitely going to be proactive about making sure there's groceries and just kind of like paying for the groceries while I'm here. This is a little thank you. He's obviously not expecting me to do that. I've been getting a lot of questions on why I'm not splitting my boyfriend's rent with him for the next 2 months. And so we're gonna compensate elsewhere. I'm also paying $300 a month for parking when I'm here. He has like a very city apartment and parking is very expensive. So we asked his apartment complex for another parking pass and it was $300 a month. So I did Venmo him for that. I also spent $150 this month on a co-working space because I'm at his apartment and his work schedule is very, very odd. So a lot of times during the day he's here and I'm not super productive when he's here and I'm supposed to be working. So I did get a co-working space. I'm kind of like testing it out this month and I might look for a different one next month that could potentially be more expensive. But I'm a big proponent of having like a very dedicated workspace if you do work from home. Let you guys know if the co-working space is worth it and if I enjoy going there every day. Other than that, I did increase my food and drink and also my shopping budget for this month to $600 a piece. It's just summer right now and I also just moved back to Pittsburgh, so I'm doing a lot with my friends here because I haven't seen them in a while. It's such a fun time of year to be spending money. Pittsburgh's so fun right now. I've always budgeted to not be super restrictive and still allow myself to spend money on the things that I want to spend money on. Shopping, honestly, this is just my favorite time of year to spend money on clothes. I love fall. I think it's the season that you get the most wear out of your clothes because you can wear them into winter. You can also kind of wear them in the spring. I love fall fashion. I will be spending money and I don't regret that. Miscellaneous expenses is the other one that looks totally different this month. I did increase my miscellaneous expense budget to $1,000 this month, which sounds kind of strange, but my thought process with that was I'm about to close on my house. I've obviously never been a homeowner before. I'm anticipating there being a lot of random expenses that are going to start popping up. For example, I just got a Costco membership over the weekend for $130. I want to buy some of my furniture at Costco, so I needed a membership. I've also been talking to a financial advisor about opening a trust for my house so that people can't Google my address, which he said was going to cost around $200 or $300. So I'm just giving myself room to budget for that and I want to be realistic. With that being said, with my new budget, my income minus my expenses gave me right around $2,400 left over. So honestly, pretty close to that rent amount that I wanted to save. However, when I started to map out my goals, I was like, okay, realistically, I can't put that entire amount into my moving sinking fund. There are some other things that I want to save for. The big one is that the holidays are coming up and I haven't saved literally even $1 for holidays yet. So I need to start saving for that because I do have family members that I need to buy Christmas presents for. Not a ton. I'll probably only save for this for like 2, maybe 3 months, but I would like to have around $700 to $1,000 in that account just to give myself a buffer. So for my savings and my investing goals for the next 2 months, while I don't have a housing payment, I want to put $1,500 a month into my moving sinking fund in my high yield savings account for furniture. Now this does not include my home down payment savings or my closing cost savings. Those are already fully funded and taken care of. Now I'm strictly saving for furniture, but I've talked about on here before that I'm trying to save $20,000 to be able to furnish my house when I move in. I'm planning on making an entire separate video of what that's comprised of, how I got that number, what I'm planning on buying, but $20,000 feels really good to me to just give myself room to buy furniture, buy decorations. I'm gonna have to put blinds on my house. I'm super close to that goal. I only have right around like $3,500 left to save by the time I move into my house. So $1,500 is my goal for this month. I said I want to put $400 into my holiday sinking fund this month. And the last one was putting $500 into my brokerage account. Now, if I'm being totally honest, if you saw my like mid-year money reset video, I've been doing such a bad job of investing into my brokerage account this year, transparently. I've been super caught up with the house stuff. I was trying to finalize my home down payment savings, worried about closing costs. I was just like really preoccupied with that I kind of dropped the ball on investing in my brokerage account. And my goal is to get back to that. I would love to get back to $500 a month going into that account every single month. Like I said, this month I'll also be figuring out homeowners insurance. So it's probably going to change my car insurance a little bit, I would assume. The lender basically told me that there's a lot of discounts on lumping together your home and auto insurance. I'll probably change my car insurance and I'm probably going to go from paying every 6 months on my car insurance, which is what I do right now, to paying monthly on my car insurance and lumping that with my homeowner's insurance. And that brings us to the end of today's video. Let me know know if you like this format, kind of talking through what I spent last month and then going over the changes that I'm making for this current month. I'll leave all of the tools that I talked about in today's video in the description, so thanks for following along.